About a week ago, Muy Dog released this video, which is a small rant he had in stream about his opinions on the FOB changes and his opinions on how the community is addressing them or reacting to them, or more specifically, their lack of reaction to them. And in this video, he gives his opinion on how he thinks FOBs should be constructed now, or perhaps how he always thought they should be constructed, and why that differs from what a lot of the community considers to be meta. Now, in this rant, he made a lot of statements that I very, very strongly disagree with. Here's a brief highlight reel, but I will link the full thing in the description if you have not seen it already.
If you have 8 people, let's say a full squad, if you have 9 people on defense in a fortified location, that you need like 16 people or 18 people to attack that position successfully, usually, right? Because you're now attacking a fortified in place position. That's like you always. What's the U.S. doctrine? You need to be like 3-1 or something. They say, oh, I can't defend my hab anymore, and I promise you, 100% that their FOB is 1 hab with 900 build left on the objective and 1400 ammo, and they're not using any of it. There's no sandbags, there's no MGs, there's no MG bunkers, there's nothing. There's no supply runs that's other than ammo. They're not doing anything except an open area with an easily attackable hab. You see in the videos, they're like, dude, why are you actually building sandbags? Why are you actually building Hescos? It's because I want to defend this area, and the advantage to setting up the radio and setting all of this up is that I can now defend it. Like, that should be a thing. For the past like 6-7 months, 8 months, I've created FOBs that almost act as objectives. And if you defend and you create a position that is built up and is putting so much pressure in the region, people will have to treat it as an objective in order to attack the actual objective.
Now here's the thing. You guys have been on YouTube for a while. You know how this works. A video comes out, another YouTuber disagrees with it, so they make a reaction video where they go through it and give their own counterpoints and their examples of why they don't think it works. And then the initial person, they get back to it and give some more of their opinions. And in the end of the day, very few people's minds are actually changed, especially when it comes to squad. Because it doesn't matter how much I tell you how I think I play squad and how I think I play it effectively. And it doesn't matter how much Moi tells you how he plays squad and how much he thinks he plays it very effectively. Because in the end of the day, it is incredibly, incredibly hard to objectively view a squad game and try to determine whether or not your strategies were effective. I'd like to say that there's 3 main reasons for this, the first of which being that squad is an incredibly complex game. 100 players versus 100 players, all of whom have different kits, multiple vehicles, a lot of different game modes, a huge variety in maps and terrain. And then the fact that there's this interesting command structure which plays a huge role and different people have different levels of authority. All of this combined with the fact that at any given time there's likely 2 different objectives that were invisible to you off game start but now are constantly shifting as one team takes one after the other, etc, etc, etc. The game comes down to a baseline system where depleting tickets to 0 causes victory, but you can't just look at that and completely deduce everybody's worth by the amount of tickets they take away from the enemy team. For example, if you're in a vehicle and you go destroy enemy armor and you absolutely murder the entire enemy team and you just get 80 tickets for your team in terms of those vehicle kills, as well as roll out the red carpet for them and allow them to operate completely without having to worry about any enemy vehicles, but your team massively loses on the objectives, were you still a benefit to your team, or would you have been more of a benefit to your team if you played the objectives with your vehicles and left the armor game to somebody else? I'm not taking a stance on that particular hypothetical because I do actually believe one way or the other and I don't really want to get into it. It's just one example of a system where there are 2 different ways to have value for your team, even if I am strongly in favor with one. Perhaps a better example, where I don't necessarily have a strong opinion one way or the other, is the combat engineer. They have 2 incredibly powerful tools. They have mines and they have C4. Now, let's say for the sake of example that we're talking about a previous version here, where the combat engineer had 2 C4s and could insta-kill a radio, no bleed out state. Would that combat engineer be better spent fighting on the midpoint, where 2 FOBs got set up and with 1 good flank he can completely spawn wipe an enemy and gain an objective? Or is he better close outside the enemy main, mining that 1 road that he knows a Logi will go after? One might win them a midpoint, but the other one might, if the midpoint is going one way or the other, prevent the enemy team from pushing a Logi truck into an opportune moment and starting a roll, or preventing your team from rolling them if they're the ones capturing the objective. These are two equally valid playstyles that could have equally powerful results, and a lot of it is dependent on how the enemy chooses to play, or even how your team plays in situations that you can't really predict, like how they're going to fight on the mid. So this is the first main problem, extreme complexity of game. The second problem is the average skill level of the average community member right now. A lot of people are coming in from either standard shooters or even just tactical shooters like Tarkov or Insurgency or something, and they're thinking they have what it takes to perform in squad without considering the huge step that is squad's strategic structure. The fact that you really can't even compete in this game unless you have multiple people working together to actually put FOBs and put spawn points down to even influence the battle. The barrier of entry to actually participate in a match is more teamwork than you will ever see in your average arena shooter. A lot of people might see squad advertising itself as a teamwork-based shooter and think, well, yeah, Battlefield is a teamwork-based shooter because I can toss an ammo crate down. Or, two people in Call of Duty who are playing and have comms with each other might have an advantage against two other people, when in reality the truth is much more extreme. And as a result of this, if you are a squad leader who actually wants to play squad in kind of a tactical manner, who wants to play squad kind of like it's a milsim as an example, or coming in with an Arma approach, and you see games that are being lost because people can't even coordinate and decide who's going to defend, you are immediately going to gain something of a superiority complex, and you are immediately going to be making decisions that are just the most basic of strategies, like, I will defend this objective, and seeing yourself performing better than a vast majority of other SLs, especially on new player servers. This gives a lot of new squad leaders who are practicing the most basic of communication and strategies within their squads a huge sense of fulfillment and a huge surge of confidence. And then there's problem number 3, which is a lack of communication from the end of the game to actually educate you on how games are won. This game will not teach you how to play it, and the way to play it is very complex. And not only will the game not show you how to play it, but it won't even give you anything like a ticket breakdown at the end screen. The points system, how is that still in the game? It is completely irrelevant to how well you did. You can go massively negative in teamwork score because you communicated with your heli pilot and had them bring you supplies and then took it off of a FOB with a truck. The act of teamwork can give you negative teamwork score. Similarly, if you go take every single Logi on the map, every single helicopter, and go build a FOB literally in the middle of nowhere and don't contribute to the match as a whole, your teamwork score will be out the fucking roof because building and placements really boosts it. The teamwork score is kind of a parody of everything that's wrong with the lack of communication between the game and its players in terms of how the game should be played. If you watch any of my match analysis videos, you'll see me do a rough breakdown on exactly how many of the tickets in each victory or defeat were as a result of objective captures, vehicle kills / radio kills, and KD difference, and to the best of my ability, ticket bleed. These 3 things really come together to make Squad the king of confirmation bias when it comes to people analyzing their own gameplay. If you go out and play chess, your win-to-loss ratio is going to be quite a good indication of whether you're any good at the game. This might vary a little bit depending on how you choose your opponents, but for the most part, at least relative to the people you're playing, it's going to show you what you need to work on. Squad, on the other hand, is full of SLs who get in, they want to use their brain, and that puts them ahead of everyone. They start forming their own ideas of what is or is not effective and applying them to games, and then they attribute every single game win directly to their ideas and their performance, and every single game loss to the rest of the team, because there is nothing out there, unless you're quite good at objectively analyzing the game as a whole, that's going to prove otherwise to you. And they get caught in this loop for an eternity, constantly believing themselves to be the saving grace of every game, and constantly hating their team for letting them down. I'm sure you guys have witnessed this when the completely unremarkable Squad 5 screams "Squad by best squad" in the end screen despite not really doing anything of note during the entire match, and then blames Tank Squad for losing despite the fact that Tank Squad did an objectively decent job and really had no play on what objectives were going to be captured anyway. So why am I saying all this? Because I don't want to go through the process of explaining to you why I think MoiDawg isn't playing good squad. I want to do my best to teach you how to determine what good squad is and show that MoiDawg isn't even attempting to do the same. I don't want to argue his points, I want to attempt to decredit them by showing his gameplay. And to do that, I need to show you this clip.
if you have, we did this on Tallil. I'm releasing a video on this gameplay. I think it's scheduled for Monday or something like that. But we played on Gastown. We defended Gastown. You could hear in comms. I want you guys to listen if you watch the video. Listen in comms. There's a couple times Command keeps yelling at us that nobody is defending Gastown because we're 200, 300 meters off the objective, right? People were upset at us because we were not on the point defending the objective, when in fact we were off the objective in a really annoying place to attack, that if people wanted to attack, they would not be able to attack the objective directly. They would have to try to defend or try to attack our place in a really pain in the ass location. And all in the meantime, they couldn't attack the objective.
So as promised, he did upload this match to YouTube under the title, "We successfully defended an objective with this tiny desert fire base." And unfortunately, he cut out the staging phase, so I had to go through his Twitch to actually find the full match, but here it is in its entirety so we can watch it. One thing I need to mention while we're in the staging phase is that he named his squad Toes. He obviously intends to have a small toe squad. It's locked. He's going to the right area. He's not even entirely sure where the objectives are going to go. He's talking to his chat in the staging phase trying to figure it out. And honestly, if I was just viewing this match with no other context, without seeing what he titled the clip, which is "New Meta Off-Point Defense FOB on Talil," I would just analyze it as a toe squad and it would be very different. But as it stands, I can't really just do that, and we're going to get more into this later. This is just a note that I want to make now while we're looking at the staging phase.
Question mark in there.
Well, crash
East to West Al-Qadir. Well, it's going to go like this to here to here. Do you think it'll go to gas? Well, no, overpass is with MEA, right? MEA starts here, goes overpass.
Populate off of hitting the caps lock key.
Caps lock, yeah.
All right, we're gonna try setting up somewhere around
You
here.
have different options, like you can mark a go-to map or different stuff.
Spicy.
Somewhere around here, we'll try to find a deflator to make a toe fob.
Done. Squad.
So while we're heading out, he has his objectives a little bit wrong. He thinks that gas is a potential fourth flag, when in reality it's a third flag. He has his two middle objectives mixed up, but by the sounds of it, he's mostly trying to counter enemy armor anyway, so it's not the biggest concern to him. He just wants to have objectives roughly in the vicinity so there's actually shit to shoot at. Which is fine under the context of a toe fob. I'm not trying to bash on that. Anyway, as he's moving towards Gastown, as you might see on the map here, a bunch of armor is moving with him, a lot of BTRs, and they encounter LAVs. They might have killed one, they might have killed two, I don't quite remember, but regardless, they call that there is contact inside of Gastown, which is a pretty big deal. If I was just analyzing this as a toe fob, then whatever. At the very least, I guess he can set down a spawn so people could try to contest it, but it's not really his job. But as a video titled Gastown Defense, and as somebody who at this point in time thinks that Gastown is going to be an objective, or at least is likely to be an objective, we're going to assume he cares about Gastown right now.
Kind of a hill, kind of 285. I'm gonna look over.
Enemies on Gastown.
Yeah, enemies on Gastown.
Alright, his next course of action is to build a FOB, or at least put down a radio and start building emplacements. Machine guns, ATGMs. He uses his entire truck supply, sends somebody on a logi run, and doesn't actually build a hab. Now, whether or not this is a good idea is entirely dependent on whether or not Gastown is going to be an active objective. If you build a spawn on a toe fob that's more than just a rally, it can result in people spawning there when you don't want them to, or it's in the middle of nowhere. Especially if every other fob is destroyed and people are too impatiently to wait for SLs to give them a better solution than a 17-mile hike. But this is where I want to point out the most annoying part about watching MoiDawg videos, which is that he just does not check the map. I can't see the progress of backcaps until one pops up on the screen like that. So really, whether or not this is going to be an objective is a very difficult thing to tell, especially for him since he's not using any kind of help. He doesn't have any kind of RAS information, whether it's a spreadsheet or a squad lanes or just the game knowledge. He's not entirely sure where they're going to go either, so he's making decisions in the dark right now. Now on this particular VAS layer, there are 3 possible third flags, and one of them is Gastown. The other 2 are in abandoned Soviet, so they're well out of his reach. In the event that it does pop up on Gastown, however, they are in huge trouble, because that is their third flag. It is a difficult flag to approach, and the enemy already have a FOB set up within there that MoiDawg is going to get eyes on himself.
They have a striker and a LAV over there.
Get that content.
Enemy Blackhawk destroyed on gas.
I was gonna ask. Can't believe I'm still up. Labs here on my server.
Is a
Cause Moi got that whip. Two labs.
where are the LAVs? Oh,
Do you have any
what's
on
that?
my attack? 2 labs.
Let me get another MG up.
Now, I find that quote absolutely fucking hilarious because right now, the entire team depends on one thing. Talil is a very challenging map after the early game because in the early game you can get FOBs where you need them, but in the later game you're going to start getting your routes blocked by armor, possible toe FOBs, etc. It becomes increasingly challenging to get spawns where you need them to be relevant to objectives. So your initial rollout matters a lot. Now, one of the things that we in BHM or CMD will do on this map is we'll put a lot of offset onto flag 4. That's a strategy we started doing when we lost a few Talil matches, and what it allows you to do is essentially stealth cap your defense flag. If both teams back cap at an equal rate, then you cannot be contested on flag 3, and if you have a slightly more efficient back cap, that gives you just that little bit of buffer time that you need to really be able to push hard onto 4, and thus secure you a big ticket boost as the early game essentially winds down and it starts to become an armor battle in the desert. From what I can see when Moi occasionally checks his map, that's largely what this team is doing as well. Whether that's coincidence or design doesn't really matter, but it's what's happening. Which means that there are 2 incredibly crucial things going on here. One, you have to have efficient backcaps, which means you have to constantly be monitoring the backcaps to make sure they're actually going to be in time for this kind of a strategy to work. And 2, you absolutely have to have stealth cappers ready for each possible third flag, one of which is Gastown, which has just been confirmed and has just come up on the map. So if this was me in this game right now, that would be 100% my focus. The moment Gastown came up, I would have realized this is what the match hinges on. And if we don't do something about this really fast, our entire team, which is heavily extended into flag 4, is never even going to see a relevant objective unless they pull out. Which when it comes to 17 different blueberry squads, as you can see over there, that's a tall order. Everything hinges on Gastown for the future of this game right now. And what does Moi do? Let's build another machine gun. He doesn't even notice it fucking pops up, or if it does, he gives it no acknowledgement, and he continues to try to build his little cute super fob off the objective. Now that means that he's leaving his team to fend for themselves in terms of getting to Gastown, because he's not pushing in a stealth capper or pushing anyone across that desert, and he's not building them a fob, even though they start to ask in command chat pretty shortly here. Actually, I might have that wrong. They might ask the second time this objective becomes relevant, which is something I'll get to. But anyway, as you can see here, he gets pushed by an LAV. He gets the drop on it. He actually hits that shot. Pretty good shot. Pretty impressive. The LAV returns fire onto the toe position. And then somehow lets himself get shot by a second ATGM. Makes the absolute worst call. Could have pulled in somewhere and repaired and stopped the burning where the toe didn't have line of sight, or the gunner at the very least had a good angle on the toe, but instead it blinds itself with smoke, pushes away, stops in the open, and the gunner, who is looking directly in the correct direction, either can't see through the flames or just completely forgets about the thing that just fucked him up in the first place. This is the first case of pretty extreme luck in terms of very bad enemy plays that they experience. But regardless, this is just a distraction right now. Remember, this whole match rests on Gastown. Something needs to happen here. If I was in a situation where Moi was on my team and there was just no acknowledgement from that sector of the map, then I'd be looking towards other lodges, looking to see how we could get a spawn there, or in a worst case scenario, trying to get a hot drop directly in there. Now bear in mind, this video is all about Gastown. He claims that this objective was defended by himself, and yet all of the action happening right now on the entire map is entirely crucial to this flag, and he's not even fucking paying attention to it. The first decision made about cap range here and actually getting that stealth cap is made by his squad mate, as you can hear now.
I'm going to sneak on the point then try to cap.
Yep. Lambda, can you run those mortars?
Now while this one guy attempts to cross no man's land between 2 walls of infantry shooting at each other, he understandably doesn't make it, but he was the one to make the best decision in the given moment, and I'd give him credit for that. But regardless, what Moi continues to do is spot targets for the machine gun, which just does not matter. The ticket gain here is minimal, the deaths mean nothing, they have a FOB, they can respawn, they can constantly be there, they control cap range. This isn't a defense, this is an offense. Moi never had control of this flag. and everything here should be viewed through the lens of offense. I don't even know why he's trying to call this a defense, and he's doing a terrible job at it. The best decision he makes is to get a mortar tube ranged in on the hab, which is a decent play. I mean, that's going to be the best way for him to take care of the spawn, which in turn, if he can clean up the infantry, might allow him to get through there. But, little spoiler alert, little shocker here, the machine guns used all the ammo. I know. Yeah, anyway. Now, as I mentioned, if I was a squad leader in this match, I'd be looking for options anywhere on the map. Is there a Logi at main? Is there an abandoned Logi? Is there a Vic I can use to hot drop in here? This flag matters. Moi doesn't give a shit about the map, he only cares about the things directly in front of him, so we can't tell what's going on until we see that Tiger hot drop directly into the flag. That Tiger saved the game. That Tiger saved the game by assaulting a flag that was never owned by their team, a flag that they never had control over cap range of. That Tiger did an offense on Gastown, proxied the hab with a hot drop, and then pushed in and captured the flag regardless of the contact there. Moi had nothing to do with any of it besides, at best, being a distraction and pulling attention to the east, allowing that hot drop to be easier. Which, to be fair, that hot drop probably needed, because what they just pulled off was a difficult feat and could have ended very poorly, and it was done entirely out of desperation due to having nobody nearby with supply actually building a FOB to attempt to help that flag.
Well, I'm glad we set up out here.
Squad
That was
2, you
legit.
said you needed no assistance over there?
That was legit.
And here it is. He's just totally enthralled with what he just managed to do. He killed a couple of vehicles, he shot up some people and spotted some targets for a machine gun, and now the flag is captured and he feels responsible for it. He feels like it was this awesome thing that he did, and he's going to make an entire video dedicated to how he defended Gastown. It's mind-boggling, the disconnect between reality and what he's thinking right now. And we're coming up on what is possibly my favorite quote of the entire video.
It goes to Rocky as well. We actually, I wish it went here to Gastown. Now I don't think we're going to be really in play.
Crack all squads to just rotate out towards me.
Well, we'll see if we lose Rocky.
Is it gas mark on a Iraqi accurate?
Accurate.
Luckily, we just have 5.
Are we just useless for now?
A little bit.
Very accurate.
But that's why we're just like half a squad.
Hey, they're literally on my head right now in Iraqi. If we don't get infantry to spawn in soon, we'll lose it.
This is a pretty good little.
Better get the BTR back.
Well, I guess while
Put down
we're
marks.
waiting, we can fob up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my Tiger to flank that hab.
Instead of chasing the objectives and actually pushing and trying to remain relevant, he says, ah, fuck, I wish the objectives were coming my way, and then accepts defeat and accepts the fact that his team is just going to lose them anyway. This is fucking absurd, especially since they're already quite a ways capped on Iraqi, and the squad that's embedded in there is in a very tight cap range. They're almost definitely going to full cap that. I agree with him that they're probably going to lose it and it isn't sustainable, but right now he could be making the world's easiest push to all the airbase and getting the world's easiest double neutral if he wanted, and instead he's prepping for failure and inevitably going to make Gastown relevant again when it really has no business being relevant. This is the kind of stuff that is incredibly painful for me to watch. He just gets a truck full of supplies that could be used to fob every possible flag 5 and secure an immediate double newt, and he puts some fucking sandbags down. Not to mention, this is the first time he's looked beyond his horizons. This entire match intentionally and deliberately made a decision based off of a different objective, which is everything in squad. This is the first time he's viewed what's going on outside of Gastown and made a decision accordingly, and this is the decision he makes. Anyway, we'll push ahead. This eventually becomes a defense objective again, and they push it from the direct south. They presumably set up a hab, although it's hard to say, because by the time they're shooting and Moi goes down, it gets revived, and they're starting to have their little engagement, a fucking swarm of Russian armor goes and deals with it immediately before they have time to even push. And so it gets immediately saved by the bell. If the enemy came in from the direct west, obviously the flag would have been lost. at any point any of the armor that he had destroyed or helicopters he had destroyed had accurately marked him, then they could have just pushed him with an MRAP, taken out the ATGM and hot dropped and immediately squashed the rally. They could have just airstruck this position, although that probably wouldn't have done much. They probably would have assumed there was a hab, and the rally honestly would have saved it. Rallies can be a decent, addition to a hab in the same area, even for that reason. But I mean, the point is the enemy makes the best possible decision for Moi specifically here to come in from the direction they come in, and Moi is backed up immediately by a strong armor push that then goes and takes care of it for him so that he doesn't actually have to push it and deal with that spawn. Otherwise, it would have been very simple for that Logi to just back around south, realize that that was a contested approach, and make an approach to the west, as I probably would have done in a situation like that. Or if at any point the enemy command had managed to get a UAV over the flag and actually determined that it was empty, they could have just pushed in directly from the west. There's a million things that the enemy team could have done to counter this, but they did not have the time and they did not make the correct initial decision by going south. But instead, we get a situation like before where he's saved by the bell, his team comes into the rescue, they immediately take care of the hab, and the fact that he blocked it for 2 to 3 minutes is what he considers to be evidence that an external FOB can easily prevent a planned offense. The other funny thing is that instead of actually trying to push it at all and deal with the spawn, he's just launching shit at it as he tends to do. You can see him hop on mortars here and just lob them wildly despite not knowing where anything is. It's pretty fantastic. Then this trend just kind of continues. The only other thing to approach him is a tap V, which he takes out. After this FOB is gone, he waits until Iraqi is full capped, and then Ollie Airbase is full capped before pushing towards Eridu. The game ends. And the reason I wanted to show this is just because I don't really want to try to demonstrate why I think that this FOB is a bad idea and that an external FOB off of the flag can't work. I just want to show you the points that he's making and the conclusions that he's drawing based against the actual match. There is so much at play here, most of which he's either completely electing to ignore or not paying any attention to, and the rest of which is directly carrying him, but he refuses to acknowledge as the primary reason why this match was successful. He was saved in this game by his own team's good plays and sheer incompetence on the side of the enemy. But I don't want you to take my word for it. I don't want you to take his word for it. I don't want you to draw your conclusions on where to build FOBs or how many FOBs to build or what to build on FOBs based off of this video. You can if you want. I've put all the information that I've come to over the years out there, and if you just want to take my word for it, you can go for it. But all you need to do is spend just a few dozen hours playing games and attempting to objectively view matches, watching the map as a whole, trying to absorb as much information as you can, and improving that skill. And over the years, and it will take, a significant amount of time, you'll have to put in several hundred hours into the game before you start to get a good feel for almost everything going on at any given time. And even when you get to several thousand hours like I'm at, you're still going to regularly make mistakes and miss details. But once you've been doing it for a little while, I promise you'll be more qualified to come to your own decisions and your own conclusions than Muy Dog, who hasn't even looked at the other side of the map for almost this entire match, and is clearly forming opinions based on a very strong bias towards building and playing, the kind of super FOB play style that is very entertaining, very fun to watch, and makes the people around him enjoy themselves, and so consequently must be good, right? And to be honest, this is nothing new. There have been squad content creators out there since the dawn of squad who have been making content that is basically just subpar squad gameplay that looks cool, or looks tactical, or is funny in some way. It's always been a staple of the platform, it's always been there, and the only reason why I'm picking apart this particular example is specifically because of MoiDawg's video title and his rant and how he talks about the meta of the game. Once you use that word, it says to me that you are attempting to find the most effective and solid approach or play style within the game. You're not talking about what you think is fun. You're not talking about the way you think the game should be run, or the way that you think the game should reward your specific playstyle. You are attempting to tell people that your playstyle is the most effective approach, and that really just could not be any further from the truth with Muy Dog. This video over the past week has kind of been the laughingstock in a lot of comp discords. I've seen a lot of people talking about it, and they don't really have good things to say about it, at least not the people who have a lot of experience. And I know there's probably some of you who hold that as a plus, who really dislike the competitive community. And there are reasons too. There's a lot of toxicity there, and I can understand why people would want to distance themselves from it, or perhaps even play squad in their own way that isn't the most effective way possible. I am not one of those people. I will always attempt to play somewhat competitively and go for the win, even if it means using strategies that I don't find as fun as other strategies. But I want you guys to know that I'm not somebody who's representing the whole double fob meta, the whole, disposable spawns, breakneck pace, as what I think core squad gameplay should be. I agree with a lot of what MoiDawg says, and that would honestly distance me from a lot of the competitive community. I truly want squad to have a pace more similar to Arma, even if that's a, tall order, and even if that's something that OWI will truthfully never really get to or implement in any reasonable way. I'm with you guys. I just refuse to sit there and pretend that it's meta and to let my own biases and my own desire for slower gameplay cloud my judgment into believing that it's actually the more effective approach to squad. And I do truly believe that's what's happening with MoiDawg, because if you go back to that match and view it through the lens of just a typical toe fob, the game makes a lot more sense. It was a toe fob that was near an objective, that was in a precarious situation. He could have been so much more useful if he actually built a fob off of it so infantry could have used it to push there. But in the end of the day, what he did, viewed within the context of a toe fob, was practical. I would argue he used too many people for that particular, role, but that's just semantics. He got in there, he blew up some armor, whatever. But he tries to pass it as something that it isn't, and he does the exact same thing on the Goro match that he's ranting over. I'm not going to play it because this video is stretching on too long, but if you watch at the very end, okay, I will play it, never mind. He starts making fun of fobs that are actively winning the game around him, and it's pretty hilarious to see.
You can see right now, we have a hab on this objective. We have a hab on a defensive fob or whatever. I would also argue that this defensive fob is actually kind of hard to utilize because you can't really defend Neva from it. Almost like a defensive fob maybe around here would also be good.
Short context break, this entire team was overextended to the east because they lost the mid and they only had the two eastern fobs, and the fob that he's trash talking right now is the fob that another SL took the initiative to build to prevent them from getting steamrolled to get quick bodies on cap.
You can see this right now. I'm not going to dunk on whoever squad 7 is, but we have so many habs here, and each one of these habs has like just nothing, or each one of these fobs has nothing but a hab on it. This one at least has a repair station, another ammo crate. You got 1500 build. Okay, there's one mortar tube. There's nothing else. There's not even sandbags. There's nothing here. This is just going to be a spawn point. This was overrun because it was just a spawn point. This isn't used because it was just a spawn point. Like all these things is you're not going to change the game unless you change your mentality on how you're playing the game.
I am sorry. I am definitely trying to be civil here. I don't want to start a war. I think we all know who's going to win that fight, but that is possibly the biggest load of horseshit I have ever heard. He's pointing to a fob that he spawned on in the very beginning of the game that was the only active fob near any objectives, a fob that has been brought back into relevancy by their ability to halt the enemy from actually capturing Neva upper, and the fob that is currently being spawned on to push and capture Neva lower. And he's saying it's just a spawn condescendingly, as if that negates his value. It's just the ability for soldiers to appear out of thin air and contest a region that they would have had no control over otherwise, without going through the incredibly long process of getting a ride from a vehicle and thus using one life because apparently spawns aren't valuable. It's what? Just a spawn? It's just the very thing that allows people to contest regions of the map? I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, while he's continuing to whinge about these squads that are apparently building too many fobs, one of them is on the east road and approaching the last flag that's immediately going to pop up because they had such a great spawn advantage and were able to easily approach Neva Bridge despite the fact that there was contact contesting the west end, which I guess MoiDawg would have tried to push through with fucking HMGs or something. But no, I think that Logi actually would be much better off if it redirected all of its supplies to the defense to build about 20 sandbags, right? Anyway, I feel like MoiDawg is really just reaching for examples. This is just a rant, alright? This is spontaneous. He's pulling the FOB thing out of his ass because it's the first thing he can think of, and he probably recognizes a lot of the things I said. I just wanted to use it as an example to demonstrate what he's trying to say. And to be fair, yeah, whatever, that's fine. I could probably end up doing the same thing by accident if I was trying to rant about, you know, something I believed that I wanted to call to mind some specific example from way back in a squad match analysis video, and I could have gotten a few details incorrect as well. It's understandable. The thing that I can't understand, the thing that I can't back up, is the fact that he chose to clip it, put it on YouTube as a rant, and rile people up, especially when he chooses to deliberately mislead people as to what he's actually doing in those games. That game makes sense as a TOFOB. It doesn't make sense as a defensive squad holding an objective, but that's what he tries to sell it as, and that is what people are going to see, especially when they watch the video and don't see the staging phase. And fuck, I don't even care if Moij in his streams is just talking about how he plays and his FOB style and whatever and why he thinks it's a good idea. But when he posts it in a video and authoritatively says that it is the new meta, there are so many people in squad who have made this exact same poor decision to overcommit to a FOB, overbuild a FOB, and dedicate themselves to it after it is no longer relevant. Since V9 we have been dealing with people like that, and what used to happen is they would just get bored and leave because everybody would be against them, they'd be tired of all of the hatred coming to them, they'd be tired of people trying to condescendingly explain to them why what they were doing was useless, and they would inevitably either stop doing it or stop playing the game. But now, they all have a knight in shining armor on YouTube with a dedicated posted video that they can link to saying, no, this guy, this member of the squad community told me that this is an effective strategy and you can't change my mind. And these aren't experienced players who know better either. These are brand new players who are being indoctrinated into this line of thinking, and it really just kind of gets on my nerves. Just take a look at this comment. I am shocked by the amount of lack of self-awareness you need to have to say in the same comment both I am a noob and this is the correct way to play and other people need to get good. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to analyze this bit. I'm going to stop now before I get myself into trouble. But yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And yeah, critical thinking. Look at things objectively and draw your own conclusions. Don't take my word for it.